Okay. Hi, so I'm Alana Halpern. I'm Joan Halpern's daughter, and she's had a jaw surgery, so I'm just speaking for her. She's told me what to say. So thank you for coming to our learning hour. This is the first in a two-part series. So the title of the series is Voices from the Inside, Focus on Our State Prisons. And next week, you're going to have an Oakland-based civil rights attorney, Dan Siegel, and he'll be joined by Dani Murillo, who pursued a career or pursued higher education after being released from the California state prisons. So today we have Nube Brown. She's director of outreach for the quarterly newspaper California Prison Focus. That publication gives voice to the incarcerated. Nube comes to that organization as a staunch supporter of human rights. She volunteers her time and strives to bring an end to the new Jim Crow slavery in our California industrial prison complex. Her goal is raising public awareness. We may have a second speaker here, Minata McKnight. She was a teenager when she was incarcerated. She's really, she would be here to talk about life for women on the inside and about the transition she's made in her life from imprisonment to motherhood and a career in social justice activism. So we'll see. You know, she does have her child, I think, with her this morning, so there may be a couple snags in her schedule, but if she does join us, we'll make room for her when she shows up.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Oh, it seems a little bit loud. It's not that you can just hear me? Okay. All right. It is really nice to see so many people here, actually. So that really gives me hope that the awareness that we would like to bring to what is actually happening to our caged community members is of real interest. And so, again, my name is Nube Brown, and I'm with California Prison Focus as their Director of Outreach, which I haven't yet really worn as easily as they've given me that title. I do love talking about people on the inside and really what they're going through. But I am also just learning about that. So I would say that my biggest passion is, again, that raising awareness as I gain more awareness for myself. I don't have what I would say skin in the game. I've never been incarcerated. I have just recently been in the world of people that are formerly incarcerated because I've only been working with California Prison Focus for less than a year. And it has been so incredibly transformational for me. And so that's kind of so I'll stop there for a second. So one of the most beautiful things about California Prison Focus is their newsletter, which is called Prison Focus. And it really acts as this wonderful conduit and exchange of bringing voices from the inside, outside, and also that connection between us out here and creating that platform for them to be self-advocates for their self-determination on the inside, because ultimately they know what's going on inside there for themselves and what it is that they want to happen. And I feel like our job out here is to gain more and more awareness and listen to them about what it is that they need so that they can move forward. And so our newspaper really so California Prison Focus started in 1989 with when Pelican Bay State Prison opened up as this maximum security prison, and thousands of people were thrown into solitary confinement and forced to exist in an 8x10 cell without any sunlight for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I encourage you all to find out more about really the torture of solitary confinement, and that is what our organization has focused on primarily. So also what that means, just as a side note, that our organization has put a lot of focus there, and so that means that we have been primarily focused on and working with male prisoners, but female prisoners have their own set of circumstances which are equally as torturous, and hundreds of thousands of women are imprisoned each day that are funneling through our system each day. So it's also really important, and it's not that we have not focused on that. We have broadened our scope and also raised awareness and exposed the abuses that are happening also in women's prisons, because we focus on state prisons. But primarily it was, the focus was on male prisons. And that's part of the public awareness as well, is realizing that, again, female prisoners are also being subjected to, again, human rights abuses behind the walls. So I do want to give a tiny bit of background, because I don't really want to, I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I do want to appeal to I think the general populace around advocacy for prisoners and again, the human rights abuses that are taking place in our prisons, because those voices inside are being silenced for a very good reason, because they do not want us to know that these abuses are taking place so they can continue to have control. And it really is up to us, and I'm appealing to, again, the general populace to be open to that awareness. So I came to this in the simplest, kind of random way, really. My son was going off to college. I knew I was going to be an empty nester. Where was I going to, put my energies? And I read a few books. One of them being, and I'm mentioning these books because I would love for you to check them out if you have not. Slavery by Another Name by Douglas Blackman. If you have read it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you have not, it was transformational for me. Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Yes, I know a lot more people would know that one. And then of course, eventually I got to The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. That was coming at the time that I decided to take this class. I was going to go back to school, and I do not have a formal education. I mean, I don't have a degree. I don't have an AA. I do not have a BA. And I've been a single mom, raised my son. He's off to college, and took this class, public speaking, got this wonderful opportunity to do some research, to do a 15-minute speech on the exploitation of prison labor, and how corporations are profiting off prison labor. And mind you, at that time, even as I was doing this, I still could not wrap myself around the idea that prison slavery was actually occurring in our country. It took me months, because I just had a hard time saying the words that at the time it was 2016, that we are actually living with legal slavery. And so once I did finally get there, and I looked out at the class who I had presented this speech to, and I could look on their faces and see that they think the same thing. This is something that you can't really conceive, right? Because apparently slavery has been abolished. But it's not, because we all know, as soon as you say that slavery is abolished, except, that word except means that slavery has not been abolished. And as for punishment as a crime, I mean, as those dots started to connect and really resonate, I just realized that I couldn't move further without addressing that. And when I looked out at those people in my classroom, young people, which was really exciting as well, because I was so much older than them, and they're still thinking that, wait, but don't people go to jail because they need to rehabilitate and they've done something wrong and they have to pay their... Just a world of... I think it kind of stunned them to hear what was possibly going on. And so, lo and behold, I somehow found California Prison Focus and became a new abolitionist. And that's what I feel like I want to bring to the outreach that they have bestowed upon me to help with at California Prison Focus, to realize that we're living with legal slavery and how it is being played out in our prisons. So, what? Yes, I will. I definitely will do that. So, Douglas Blackman is Slavery by Another Name. And then Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, which you may already know. And of course, I've watched 13th, I think 5 times, and I still have a hard time getting over it. There's also another book that was personal to me, which I will share, which is The Warmth of Other Suns. And I'm of mixed heritage, and it was my white mom who discovered that book and shared it with me, so that made it especially. I organized a march in August of last year, the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March. It was a sister march to the big one that happened in Washington, D.C., which I think ultimately is why CPF decided I should be their outreach person, because I'd never done anything like that. But nonetheless, I do want to read something by one of our cage community members who's been inside for a really long time, because ultimately it's about their voices. Hi, Minata. Yay, so Mianta's here, which is really what this needs to be about. Hi, beauty. Oh my gosh.
Want to get out? Want to get out? All right. Water, what else? She's getting the coffee. I brought water with me.
So glad you could join us. It's awesome.
Not shy.
Aww. Hi.
Always.
Come sit down next to me. Hi, Minata.
Hi.
I'm going to let you would you like to? This is Minata McKnight.
Hi.
So the one thing that I will say is tell me your beautiful daughter.
Her name is Aiko. She's 2 years old, and this is my daughter. Say hi.
Hi, Aiko.
You want to come to your mommy?
We also have aftercare.
She usually stays with me, unless she starts acting crazy. I'll be like, no, go take a nap.
Aww, we'll take her.
Yeah, she does. And I let her. Right, I hope not.
Excellent. So one thing that I wanted to say, which I'm so glad that you're here, because the name of this is getting the voices out, right? The voices from the inside is what this is about. And it really is about those voices of people who have lived the experience. Oh, sorry, okay. And so I just want to read, I want to give voice to someone on the inside. It really personifies so much of what I wanted to say, and then I really want to give it over to Minata because it's her voice, it's her experience, and those, again, on the inside that I think it's really important for us to, I hope that we will open ourselves to that listening space. What if you were only known for the worst mistake you ever made? And don't worry if I cry, because it happens every time. So, my name is Hatare Olugbala, and in 1987 I was shot, captured, and imprisoned. I entered the prison system shortly before Pelican Bay SHU was opened, and I became one of the prisoners shipped to the SHU in those first few buses. I've been incarcerated for over 30 years. Mistreatment, isolation, cruelty, and loneliness were my cellmates. Being that I was young, 16, I was not prepared for the mental, emotional, and psychological impact that Pelican Bay SHU would have on me, and would continue to have on me even years after I was finally let out of the SHU. Pelican Bay SHU was hell for me, but I survived. I found a place within myself where I could shield myself from some of the effects, a place where the damage would not be as thorough, a place where love, communalism, compassion, and hope remained. Upon being let out of the SHU, I was placed on C status, for despite what was being expressed to the public, the effects of long-term isolation were well known. I required social, mental, and emotional reintegration in order to function around people. I will never fully be free of the effects of the SHU, and I accept this. However, I will never give up hope in the healing process. I started to recognize that I had developed proximity issues. Every time someone would get too close to me, or if a brother would embrace me, I would immediately tense up and go into combat mode. This was just one of the many effects of the SHU. I also recognized that I could not form peer connections with people, and that my social interactions were not organic, but rather forced. I could not form connections, for it felt foreign. Human connection and contact felt foreign. As I was trying to adjust, I was actively involved with the prisoners' rights movement. I dedicated myself to the prevention of prisoner-on-prisoner violence and changing the perception of prisoners in the minds of the public. At this time, the image of prisoners was controlled by politicians, and it still is, and those who had an economic stake in the negative perception of prisoners. Anytime prisoners or prison was mentioned, it always highlighted the violence and the mayhem. The public was led to believe that we were vicious animals, that we were not human beings, and the propaganda was pushed so often on the public that when incidents of cruelty and mistreatment were exposed, they were ignored and dismissed. The prisoners were always somehow to blame. By the time I arrived to prison, there were very few remnants left. Those of us charged with and brave enough to carry on were at a major disadvantage, and we had to be creative for our elders. Those who came before and handed us the blueprints had been removed, some turned, while others were discredited in some way or another. We lost a lot of ground, so we had to adjust and began regaining some of that ground back by turning already existing platforms into revolutionary and cultural educational groups. I myself created a group called African Spiritual and Educational Studies Service in 1996. We focused on prisoner-to-prisoner social relations and unification strategies. We worked on methods designed to reduce violence among ourselves and bring awareness to the problems we faced as prisoners, especially Black prisoners. There came a shift in the prisoners' rights movement which started in the late 90s and focused on transforming the image of prisoners in the minds of society. A shift that included prisoners beginning to take responsibility for the way in which we were being portrayed to the public. We felt that society needed to know and needed to see beyond the propaganda. They needed to hear about those prisoners who were enrolled in taking creative writing classes, to find a nonviolent way of expressing their pain, about prisoners teaching each other how to read and write, They needed to hear about prisoners coming together in Yoruba service to reconnect with their culture, each other, and themselves. They needed to hear about the prisoners who camouflaged and held his pain inside when talking with family and loved ones, because he's worried about how it would impact them. Society don't hear about prisoners who work for nothing, literally 5 cents an hour, still send their paychecks home to contribute to their families. People don't hear about the father who finds creative ways to express his love to his family and children. They don't hear about the prisoner who enrolls in a Defy Ventures or a college program so that he can become a better man, a better son, a better husband, or a better father. Society, its people don't hear about the police planted a knife tip in a prisoner's work area or cell and staged an escape attempt, or how, despite this, the prisoner continued to strive to do and be better and not lose hope in his own humanity and healing. Prisoners are human beings too, and our mistakes or bad choices do not define who we are. We are not that bad choice or bad decision. Our stories are still being written. Only now, it is we who hold the pen. We love, hurt, long, and fight. We struggle between hope and despair, all the while fighting to hold on to our humanity, hope, and dignity. The shift in the focus of the prisoners' rights movement has caused many to look beyond the propaganda regarding the prisoner class and look directly at the prisoners themselves. Prisoners have always been seen as separate. We are not considered a part of society, and this view is why we are allowed to be mistreated and abused. People don't talk about prisoners or prison. We are not part of the conversation, the day-to-day. And because of this, it is easy for people to cast their own misconceptions about us. The image of prisoners must be expressed by the prisoners themselves if we ever hope to shed these stigmas. We must allow the world to see us, to see our fight, our struggles, and our determination, and to not allow the hate, the abuse, the racism to overwhelm us to the point where we just give up and stop believing in hope, love, faith, and compassion in our own humanity. Transparency is what we fight for. As it stands now, the police can do anything they want to a prisoner. The propaganda against us was so effective that society felt that regardless of what happened to us, we were always wrong. If a prisoner was shot and killed, it was his own fault. Why would an officer shoot a prisoner unless the prisoner did something wrong? Whenever the victim is blamed, there can be no justice. The American, quote, justice system has never been about rehabilitation. It is only another form of legalized slavery, a multi-million-dollar enterprise with its main and most valuable commodity being people, slaves under the label of prisoners and cheap labor. Yoruba Service, the Lifer Group, the Defy Ventures are just some of the groups, services, programs that speak to the humanity of the prisoner class and provide means for prisoners to make substantial and very real changes to their lives. These entities, among others, believe in and support the redemption of the human soul. And I just want to say that I hope that that becomes us, that that's where we maybe find some place where we can go to be that, believing in and supporting the redemption of the soul. This conversation needs to get started, and I am taking the first step. I challenge you to be brave and come to the table and listen. I challenge you to come to Yoruba Service, hear our stories, to look the men in their eyes and the women as they open themselves up to you. These men and women are only asking to truly be heard and to be truly seen. I close with this. How would you feel if you cried out but were never heard? Or how would you feel if you were cast into the shadows and were never to be seen again? If you are willing to allow the prisoners, the men, to be heard, and you are willing to attend a Yoruba Service to offer your support in whatever form you can, we will show you that that we needed were for people to believe in us and be given the proper tools and the opportunities to prove who we really are. Change starts with the desire, and we, men, prisoners, truly desire change. Hatari Olugbala Walker. Thank you for listening to his voice. So, he gave a nice introduction to Minata, but again, I want to say that I am just beginning to get to know Minata, and she is just an incredibly inspirational human being, woman, mother, and I am so happy to be getting to know her more and be able to be a part of giving space for her to share her story with you. Thank you, Minata.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Minata McKnight. Don't put your mouth on that. We don't do that. We don't do that. Would you like some milk? Want water? All right, I can help you out. Mommy is equipped with snacks. Here you go, ma'am. Say thank you. You're not. No, I don't need you to take this from me. We can share it though. All right, so my name is Minata McKnight. This is my daughter, Aiko. How you doing? I served 18 years and 1 day on a 15 to life sentence, so I understand exactly what was written there because I lived it. Hope. Hope is something that I had to hold on to because the Department of Corrections, as that letter said, does not promote rehabilitation in any way, shape, or form. They put that R on the end of CDCR as a euphemism, but not as a true meaning of helping people to understand what caused them to make the decisions that they made to land them in prison to begin with, nor heal the wounds that they endured so they didn't continue to hurt people because they had been hurt in some way, shape, or form. For myself, I was about her age when I was being molested by my stepmother, and my brother was as well. It went on for 6 years. It changed my belief system because I told what was happening, but nothing changed. When she found out that I told, it turned out worse for me. I was beaten. I was made to do things that no child should have to do, no human being should have to do against their will. And I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know what I could do about it. So it shifted my belief system to where I sought acceptance outside of home the older that I got. And I did so because I didn't feel safe at home. No, you can't have it. Do you want your water? And she wants this mic. I might have to stand up. Yeah, she's like, give me the mic, Mom. So seeking acceptance outside of home caused me to gravitate towards the wrong types of people. I still attracted those that could manipulate me, that could abuse me if I didn't do what they wanted me to do. I did not value myself, and so I couldn't possibly value anybody else along the way. I had tried to commit suicide by the time I was 8 years old. I tried to walk into the ocean. That was when The Little Mermaid was out, and I thought I could turn into a mermaid and get away from all the things that I wanted to get away from. That didn't work. I tried again 2 more times when I got a little older, because I was tired of being here. I felt like I was a burden to my family. I felt like I had done something to cause the things that were happening to me to happen. I did not do well in school. My parents had a custody battle that lasted 13 years. I moved a lot, a whole lot. So there was no place that really felt like home. I would be packed up and just moved to a new location because that's what my parents wanted at the time. And I don't knock my parents for the things that they did or the decisions that they made because they were doing the best that they possibly could under the circumstances. I can't say that I would make the same decisions now that I have a child. I wouldn't. But that's just me. She didn't come with an instruction manual, so I'm figuring it out as I go along. And I am a single mother, so it's rewarding and challenging at the same time. I went to therapy for the molestation as a child and addressed it to the best of my ability, but I still gravitated towards the wrong types of people. I ended up in abusive relationships. And so to like bypass all the in-betweens, the boy that I fell in love with at 16, I thought we were going to be together forever and ever, was very jealous of the family structure that we had. He didn't understand the dysfunction that was happening, and he just saw that we had lived in a 14-room home in Brisbane, that my father owned a business, that he thought I came from money, but at what cost? But my soul. So he decided to rob the house. It was his idea. I did not stop him. I went along with it. I felt like my stepmother would understand what it felt like to lose something by robbing her home. And she was a person that was defined by things. So if you had the nice shoes, the nice car, the nice watch, the jewelry, then you were important. And I wanted her to understand what it felt like to lose something because I lost everything. In the commission of the robbery, she died. December 1st, 1995 is when it happened. December 2nd, 1995 is when I was arrested. December 3rd, 2013 is when I got out. I'm 39 years old now. I went in when I was 17. I had never lived on my own, never had a job. I worked at my dad's store. That does not count as a job. But never had been self-reliant, had not graduated from high school, had never driven a car legally. So to get out after serving a life sentence, I never went to SHU. SHU stands for Segregated Housing Unit. I don't know if people know that. I always give the acronyms because there's so many. That gives you context. You're isolated, you're in a box. But women in prison are treated totally different than men. Being a woman in prison or a young girl in prison, you are subject to sexual harassment, rape, manipulation. I still gravitated towards the exact same type of people I was trying to get away from, except for it was in a confined environment. I was told that the governors that were in office, Gray Davis and Pete Wilson, weren't letting lifers out. So I might as well get comfortable because I was going to die in this place. I'm glad I didn't listen because I wouldn't be here. She wouldn't be here. But here we are. Looking at the look of disappointment on my parents' face in court, in general, of knowing that they could not help me out of the situation that I'd put myself in. I don't blame my boyfriend for what happened. I blame myself because had I told him no, he probably would have did it anyway, but I wouldn't have been complicit in that crime against my family. And so it's harmed a lot of the relationships that I have with family members. Most are proud of me for where I'm at now, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I do have a brother that I told you about earlier in the story. We have not spoken in 26 years. We stopped talking when I was like 15. And he has stopped talking to my parents because they talk to me. So I respect the fact that he doesn't want to be bothered and that I've apologized in detail, not just, I'm sorry for the things that I've done that have affected you. I went through and did, I don't like 12 steps, but a moral inventory to say, these are the ways that I affected you. I changed the way that you could travel. I changed the way that you could go to school. People look at you differently because they know I'm your sister. So I realize I cannot say that I understand, but I empathize about the things that I did that caused you pain, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you don't feel safe in San Francisco anymore and that you had to move to a whole other city. I'm sorry that you feel embarrassed by the decisions that I have made that have caused you to have to change careers. I'm sorry that you don't want to be connected to me any longer and that you've chosen not to talk to our parents as a result of the things that I've done and because they choose to have a relationship with me. He doesn't want to hear it. but I did offer it. It's a gift. If you choose to take it, that's fine. If you don't, then that's fine too. I will not force my presence upon you. So he's never met his niece. I'm sure he knows about her from social media, but he's never met her. And that does bother me because it's just him and I. And she needs to know her uncle. So hopefully one day he will meet her because she's a cool kid. Mommy turned out to be pretty cool too. Throughout my time in prison, I did a lot of self-help. And like I said, CDCR does not necessarily put things in place for you to do. And I wanted to work specifically on the issues that I had with molestation and anger and self-esteem. And so I created a group called YUP, which stands for Young United Players, which is an extension, an official chapter of the United Players in San Francisco. They're a violence prevention program. So anybody that was in my group was 17 or under at the time of their arrest. And the purpose of creating this group was because our needs were a little bit different than people that were grown when they committed their crimes. So we had like anger management. I had some of the hardest gangbangers from LA doing yoga. Get your downward dog on. And they did. And I told them, I said, we're gonna face a circle so nobody's looking at anybody else, you don't feel self-conscious. Let's do it for us, not for anybody else. And I realized that the self-help that I went to, creative conflict resolution, there's a group called Prison of Peace that did peacekeeping within the institution to help keep the violence down because they cram us all in one room. There's no way they would stick 8 men in one room, but they'll stick 8 women in one room and expect us to figure it out. And sometimes there are people with mental health issues that we have to care for and hope they don't hurt themselves or hurt us in the process. So it is modern day slavery, working for 8 cents an hour, but your restitution's 55%, so whatever you do make, you're not gonna get. The canteen is marked up 300%, so if you do go to buy soap or noodles or something, you have to pick between stamps to write your family or detergent to wash your clothes. So that makes people resort to other things sometimes. I won't go there. I went to school while I was inside. I got a scholarship to one school, and then my family paid for another. The reason I was doing as well as I was because I didn't want my parents to be angry with me and leave me there. They couldn't save me or bring me home, but they could definitely stop visiting, stop writing, stop allowing me to call. Because all the people that I thought were gonna be there, the boyfriend, he told on me. His friend turned on me. All my friends from high school did not write. I was by myself. My family did that 18 years and 1 day with me. And so I value them far more than I could possibly describe. So in school, I had 10 classes since I was in 2 schools. I came out with my AS degree in business management. And I came out with 75 credits to go towards my BA degree, and I actually graduate in August of this year with my interdisciplinary studies degree in BA from CIIS. So I am a full-time student. I'm a full-time mother. I'm working full-time. I have a massage practice because I went to school for massage therapy last year and graduated in May. And the purpose of me doing massage is because I did it when I was inside, pushing pressure points to help people balance themselves back out. And I found that it kept me from having to go to medical a lot of times because they were practicing eugenics and sterilizing people. Oh, you have an abnormal pap. Let us take a look at it. You come out and you have no reproductive organs left and don't understand why your body's going through the change because you were young enough to be able to have children, but now you're not. So the organization I work for is called Justice Now. It's a nonprofit that works with people inside women's prisons. I'm the first Black person formerly incarcerated on staff. I'm the community engagement director. So I work with the very same people that I was in prison with. We have a collect call line, we do prison visits. My job is mainly about reentry and finding resources and ways to support people when they come home and interviewing people so that the voices of impacted, marginalized people, especially from women's prisons, are heard. I take my daughter to work with me sometimes too. She hangs out with the interns. So working in social justice, I realized that self-care is important, just like self-care was important in prison with massage. And so going to school for that, getting the certificate and graduating with honors for that has allowed me to give back to my community that I took from, to be able to provide massage for people coming home, because I know what prison does to the body and the mind. So I help release that and give them the information that they have a choice about their health care now. You don't have to go sit at the doctor's office in prison and they're gonna experiment on you and do whatever to you or deny you. You have the information, you decide what you wanna do with it. After I'm done with my BA degree, I'm gonna apply to grad school. I'm going to be a psychologist. So that's what's coming next. And so it should take about 3 years to do that. I'm connected to the Association of Black Psychology. I do emotional emancipation circles. I'm also a professional dancer. So I dance in Pride and Carnival, and I dance with the collective called Doctari Dance Medicine Collective, who is, our director is a psychologist, and she's the secretary of AB Psy. So she's my queen. I feel like for those coming home, they need a therapist that looks like them, who's lived through what they've lived through. Our youth need it because they're not gonna open up and talk to people about the things that are going on with them, because look what happened in the past when they did so. I know for me, I opened my mouth to a therapist. It's written and it's followed me around forever. It's time to change the narrative and stop letting people tell me who I am, and stop letting people define me by my deeds. I made a mistake. I've been accountable. I served my time. I will not allow anybody else to put me back in prison in my mind, my spirit, or physically. So I'm here today because I think it's important to share my story. I brought my daughter with me because she fell out when I got ready to leave. I was gonna bring her anyway, but she didn't understand, like, I'm packing a stroller to take you to. She just fell out, and I was like, come on, let's go. I care for her, and I care for my 74-year-old father, who watches her in the daytime when I'm at work, or school, or a show, or something. I'm always doing something. And I realized the gift that's been given to me coming home, and I won't squander it. I do what I do not because it's expected. It is expected. But even more so, it's because it's what I prayed for and what I asked for. I asked to be here. So when I'm sitting in traffic, I'm actually okay with that. I get annoyed. I do have road rage. I talk to cars. And I call them by the make of the car, like, hey, Prius, get out my way. But, right. And I keep it clean because most of the time she's in the car with me. But when I think about it and I think about the frustrations of getting a ticket or traffic or bills, since I've never paid bills before, I have to think about it from the standpoint of people inside would love to do that. And that's why I have 5 side hustles, so that I can do that and actually live a life that I enjoy. I'm trying to think what else I have to tell you. Do you have any questions? Yes. I am elated. Sometimes I'm not happy, but most of the time I am happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. Every time I look at my child, I'm just like, I am a mom. I have a whole person over there. A tiny, a little person that is an image of me. And so I'm paying attention to what that means, of disciplining her in ways that I know are helpful and constructive versus how I was disciplined, which was beating and taking my food. I don't agree with that. So all the things that my parents did, or my stepmother did, or the adults in my life did that didn't work, I'm conscious not to do to her. She doesn't deserve that. She didn't ask to be here, but I wanted her. And there's people inside that would love to have a child that can't now. either because of eugenics or because they've been kept so long in their reproductive years that the option is no longer available. So, can't say that I might have another one. That hurt. That hurt a lot. But if it happens, if it's meant, then so be it. But more than anything, I give my all to my daughter. My massage practice is actually named after her. It's called Aiko Miyu Massage. She don't even know she owns a business, and she's only 2. Right, she runs the world. So, I don't know what else you want me to say. I mean, I can keep talking.
There's one other question.
Yes.
Did you have any contact with chaplain or spiritual services when you were inside?
Absolutely. Here's the thing. I did go to church. I went to Christian services a couple of times, but after being told that I'm condemned to hell for my sins, and because I'm bisexual, that you're going to hell, I stopped going. And then I watched the crooked corruption and stuff happen with the pastors and the people inside and how that worked out and how they manipulated, and I'm not judging them, but that's not what I want to be a part of. So when I heard Yoruba, it made my heart sing. They didn't have Yoruba in there when I was in there. I used to go to Native services because I'm part Native. I used to go to Muslim services, even though I didn't want to be a Muslim. There was some stuff to learn to be a better person. And so I feel like the basis of all religions is don't be a troll, be a good person, and treat people the way you want to be treated. So I take the qualities that I can to make me a better person, to make me a better mother, daughter, organizer, dancer, and just human being overall. But what made the most sense to me when I was inside was the Native services, the drums. Drums call me. Being there and listening to the stories and the lessons that are told mattered to me. And my mother raised me in a way that I knew my part of my Native side, so it made the most sense to me. So I have feathers everywhere at home. Hawk feathers, owl feathers. It's all medicine. And my daughter will know that. And the reason her name is what it is because we are part Japanese. So I named her Aiko because I know as a black little girl on an application, they're going to toss it if her name is Aisha, Maisha, Junquisha, or anything else. I want to give her a chance. So I'm still staying true to who I am, and she'll know who mommy is, or who mommy was. But I named her what I named her. Her name means love child, beautiful moon. And she is just that. Over there playing with those Crocs on. Too cute, they're this big. You're welcome. Any more questions? Yes. How can you help? Well, it is modern day slavery, so I want to make you aware of a couple of things. The chairs we're probably sitting in were probably made in prisons. The flags you see are made in prisons. Glasses that come from like Medi-Cal, Medicaid, SSI, and all those, made in prisons. Dentures, same thing. Milk, almonds. Look up PIA, Cal PIA, and it'll show you all the things that are made in prisons. Cal PIA, California Prison Industry Authority. Even Bob Barker had stock in it because our soap said Bob Barker, so I don't watch The Price is Right anymore. I don't buy Jordans because Michael Jordan has stock in prisons as well. So, Jordans, Nike Jordans, Michael Jordan shoes. I pay attention to what I'm purchasing, and some of the stuff you can't get away from because it's just capitalism at its best. But
Divest.
True,
Divest.
true.
Take your money out of big banks.
I need to. I so need to. I do.
And it's difficult, but those are ways to interject, right?
Yeah.
I mean, divest, take your money away from places that are profiting and supporting prisons. So Wells Fargo.
That's my bank.
I'm sorry, girl. I know.
They were the only one that would give me a bank account.
Yeah, right. And that's partly what happens, right? So for all of us, where it's easier for us to do that, that's our job, okay? Because that's how they keep the cycle going, right? They give those that have gone through the system fewer and fewer options. Talking about the 0 to, nothing services available when she returns home or when any of them return home. The few that come are, you got Wells Fargo. That's the only one. And we're also the biggest, one of the biggest donors for a private prison. What does that say? So we have to do that because we do have options. So that's the difference. So it's no indictment is what I'm also saying. Right. You do what you got to do, girl. You do what you got to do. But we got to take the harder road because we have the privileges. And that's what I was saying also about not having skin in the game. We got to get our skin in the game where we can. And I believe that's how we can help. So yes, getting the information, I'll just say, because, sorry, now the microphone's in front of me and I'm taking time. You're such a sweet thing. Yeah, I love you. Do what you can. Yes, I definitely will. So thank you for all being here. I mean, all the seats are taken up. This is so beautiful, I thought there was going to be a lot fewer. So, get your skin in the game. What was the name of that? California.
Cal PIA. I used to work for PIA. I was an ophthalmic lab tech. And I also worked on their cars and all types of things. So I can weld and fiber optics, and I do all types of things. I'm a jack of all trades. But I want to say, also when people get home, and I saw you had your hand up for a question. People come home and we're still not technically free. We're on parole. I can't have a passport. I can't go outside of 50 miles without a piece of paper saying that I have permission to be there. A parole agent can walk in my house at any time. My daughter doesn't know who that is that's coming in, but it is intrusive to have somebody just beat on your door and come walking in and ask you a million questions. If I'm driving and I get pulled over by officers, I'm supposed to let them know that I'm on parole, which means I get pulled out the car, patted down by a man in public, and questioned, what'd you go to prison for? Well, when you pulled my name up, it told you what I was in prison for, so what is it that you're asking me? I don't understand. The largest part of the prison population are people of color, Black and brown people. And it was designed that way on purpose. So you ask what you can do. Pay attention to what you're voting for. Pay attention to the consensus, because you live out the consequences of that for many, many years thereafter. And right now we're living out the consequences of the consensus from years ago. Our ability to vote as people on parole or on paperwork is, I can't vote. I can't vote yet. We're pushing for the coalition, Free to Vote coalition, with Initiate Justice right now to get people who are inside and people on parole the rights to vote. But right now, when people are like, hey, would you like to register? And I'm like, no. Well, why not? Because I'm on parole. Do you want to say anything else? And they're like, I get it, and they leave. So they know. It's not like they don't know. Like, well, we're working towards something different. I can't vote.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I was going to explain at the end.
Somebody else had their hand up. I know you did.
Something similar, just like what can we do to support women in prison?
Volunteer with organizations that work with people inside women's prisons. I'm not saying you have to go write a bunch of letters, but pay attention to what's going on. So if you know there's public comment coming up, go, show up. If you know that a law is about to be passed and people are lobbying against it, weigh both sides. Talk to your friends about it. Have those difficult conversations about modern day slavery. Have those conversations about it could be anybody that's busted. And I'm not saying that we're all angels, but the difference between me and you is I got caught. I'm sure that everybody in this room has done something. Right, who was a rocket scientist at 16 years old that made the best decisions? I wasn't. So, I mean, that's the difference. And it could be your nieces, your nephews, and it's not just a people of color problem. It's affecting everybody. And don't let it be the fact that it affects everybody else, but when it comes to the Black or brown community, it's not my problem. Because it is. At some point, they're gonna let us out. We're gonna be your neighbors. Wouldn't you want us to come out better versions of ourselves instead of angry, institutionalized, crazy people? I know that I'm not normal. I'll never be normal. I'm okay with that. But I also am aware that prison not only helped me to be a stronger person, it turned me into a better criminal. One that I wouldn't have been otherwise. But it's all in how you use those skills. Yes.
I just wanted to comment, I'm really glad you brought your daughter because I think she's real testimony to what kind of person you are.
Thanks. She's chilling. Yes.
I'm going to just suggest a couple of other policy sorts of things that we might be thinking about. Is that okay to just name a couple?
Sure.
So, I mean, first of all, you've already been kind of talking with privatized prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Something we should be resisting. The whole check the box campaign, which has to do with the way that felons are treated after they've been released from prison.
Mm-hmm.
Even after you served your time and you've paid your debt, there's still all these ways that we punish people after they've been released.
Mm-hmm.
There are attempts to change the requirement that employment applications have a box that say I've been
Convicted of a felony.
and I just wanted, and there are others, so you can come to my list if you want. But one of the things I want to say that I kind of realized is that, there's this period of time, let's say 15 to 23 years old, where a young adult doesn't have executive function, so we know now that the brain is developing in some way. And, any white kid in this country, if they got into trouble, we would do everything we could to help them avoid the major consequences of their actions during that period of time. And I believe we should be treating all young people that way, especially during that period of time where we just, we think that we know what we're doing, and, most of us didn't, and most of us kind of got away with it, and some people didn't.
True.
And my hope would be that we would treat all people in that age range with that same kind of care around the consequences of their behavior during that period of time.
I agree. And yes, it is called Ban the Box. And if you look at what just happened with the shooting, let's go there. Another little boy had done something that was the same age, and they called him a grown man. This boy goes in there and kills 17. Well, whatever he did. I try not to watch the news because it just pisses me off. But they said he was a boy.
A broken boy.
A broken boy. Grown.
A grown man.
Not saying, but your brain's not developed until you're 25 anyway. I get it. But look at how media portrays. Oh, well, this is what happened to him, and he was this, and he was that. Even people that have been victimized, black boys, black men. Just as many black women are shot and killed by officers, but they don't talk about that. It's not publicized as much. Sandra Bland was one of many. There's a campaign called Say Her Name. It's on YouTube. Watch it. It shows you cops beating up women, handcuffs, slinging them into walls and stuff. Bet you if there are white women, that would never happen. But it is what it is. So what I want to say about policy work specifically is, educate yourself on the policies that are happening. And I agree with you. All people should be treated the same. But in this capitalistic, patriarchal society that's built on the backs of my ancestors, what does that look like? And people say, how can I be a good ally? And I say, are you willing to give up or trade places with us? Is the treatment that we receive something that you're okay with, and would you be willing to receive it yourself? And most of them are like, absolutely not. So say something, do something. In any capacity, not just like sitting here today and being like, oh, this is really messed up, we want to do something about it, but follow through. Yes.
If you could abolish the system as it is and be the architect of a new one, what would it look like?
Wakanda.
Yes.
Wakanda forever. I've seen it twice. I watched it on Friday. Yes. Please watch it. It was good.
Yes, Wakanda.
Wakanda.
Black Panther, everybody.
Yeah. Wakanda forever. Straight up. Let me think, what else did I want to say? My mind is blank. Oh, I'm the only black person in my class. I'm the only black person in my class, which is fine. But having these conversations about systemic oppression and how it affects people. I have a 24-page paper due about this because I picked the topic. I'm writing about being black. I'm so for that. That's an easy topic. Easy. But having the conversations, a lot of my classmates ask me the same question, like, how do we be better allies? And I'm like, white fragility is real. So you need to have those conversations amongst yourselves. I should not have to explain to you what the problem is because I'm not the problem. I'm actually not the minority, I'm the majority. But the way that things are framed, the danger of a single story has put it out there to make them believe that we're the minority when we're not. That's crazy. So yeah, I'm reading a lot about racism, institutional oppression, and what that looks like. And even in academia, no matter how brilliant I am, I'll get my doctorate. That doesn't mean they'll let me practice. I'm too powerful if I practice. I have the lived experience and a piece of paper to back me up and say I'm super qualified. They don't want that. So we'll see what happens. We shall see. Yes? Now they have more people. They just hired 2 more black people, but for 3 years, I was the only black person. I went from legal advocacy and social justice fellow to director of community engagement. So I'm there, I travel a lot, I speak a lot. It's what I do. Yeah.
We have time for a couple more questions, and then I don't know if y'all have time to hang out after, or if you need to get going.
Let me check my phone. Okay. That'll dictate what's happening in my life next.
It's one of the ways there, like one of the things that Minata was saying is that she had her family that gave her some support. That was part of one of the ways she was able to get through what she was getting through. And a lot of people on the inside don't have that. And there is a waiting list of people who would like to have human rights pen pals. So that's what the blue paper is. There are not enough yet people who are willing to be a human rights pen pal. It's not just a simple little thing. It's to be taken seriously. There is a training process. So if you are interested in it, sometimes it's just, and that's part of trying to dissolve that barrier.
I want to say how important mail is in there. They have JPay email now, which is one of the services that are offered through the institution, and it's probably sponsored by the CCPOA, which is California Correctional Peace Officers Association, which is the largest union in the world, in California for sure. Yes, mama. So JPay allows people to email back and forth. Before then, there's snail mail. But when you hear your name called and that envelope slides in the door and you see a familiar name or an unfamiliar name, to even be acknowledged and remembered, that know that somebody took the time to actually write you and wants to hear what you have to say, means the world. Because there's many people that the officer, that's a really nice way of putting it, the person in green comes to the door and slides the mail under, and when you don't get anything, whether it's your birthday, a holiday, you've graduated, somebody passed away, whatever the case may be, you feel erased. You feel like you're forgotten. You feel dead. Because you are forgotten. People's lives out here go on. They don't think about the day-to-day life of what it's like for somebody inside, of being counted every 2 hours while you're sleeping, somebody tapping on the window or the lights on constantly, somebody telling when you could go outside, what you could eat, what you could wear, things like that. So if you're gonna write a letter, be consistent. All you have from out here is your word. If you don't have your word, then you don't have anything. And nobody else inside needs to be disappointed by somebody outside telling them that they're going to do something or be present when they're not. Especially the lifers, because we need the support for board. And I'm not saying that you have to give all your money or anything like that. Your time, effort, and energy in supporting somebody emotionally and mentally is important. I have people that I wrote when I was inside that I'm still connected to, that I call, that are life coaches and like people, important people. Everybody's important, but they're the important people that the board wanted to see. And I still have conversations with them because I'm adjusting. When does the reentry phase end? It doesn't, because I was out of society for almost 20 years. All this is new. So if you're gonna be present for people that are incarcerated, be present. If you're not, get out the way.
So one of the things too that California Prison Focus with their, we get hundreds of letters a month, hundreds, that we respond to for all different kinds of things. They could be one of the things that we do, obviously, our main purpose is to expose the human rights violations that we talked about earlier. And so they will write to us about what's happening. They will write because they hear about some kind of legislative action that's going to be taken. What are we doing here on the outside about that? So that's keeping that dialogue alive. They might just be asking for a subscription to our newspaper, because if you are in any kind of SHU situation, which is solitary confinement or ADSEG, there's all kinds of different names now, even though there has been a settlement, CDCR is still trying to keep people in some kind of segregation, and because that's what they do. And so we send a free copy. So I'm going to segue now. Any of you that have the newspaper, and if you are willing to purchase, make either a donation or make a purchase for yourself or someone on the inside. It gives you the prices there. I think it's $25. If you donate $25, you are also buying a subscription for someone on the inside. This newspaper has been invaluable to people on the inside, and I will continue to call them our caged community members, because they are a part of our community, whether or not CDCR and this system tries to tell you otherwise. They will try to make them invisible and unheard, and we're going to do everything we can to undo that. Please.
So one way to start now is to stop calling them prisoners. It's a label. Inmates, prisoners, parolees, all the language that CDCR and the state of California would like you to use to continue to dehumanize people, stop using it. Because think about it. Inmate. What does that imply? That I'm subhuman. Parolee. I'm a sub-citizen. I pay taxes. I can't vote. I don't break the law. But I don't have all the rights that a basic human has out here. You're free, but you're not. Not completely. So listen to the language. If you know it doesn't feel right and doesn't sound right, at least question it. Don't just roll with it. Be like, okay, yeah, well, they're inmates, they're prisoners, they're criminals, they're this, they're that. Dehumanizing language makes it easier to continue to victimize and dehumanize and traumatize people that have already been traumatized. If they're there to do their time, do their time. Don't torture them further. They're gonna come out at some point. They're gonna be standing behind you in Walmart. Think about it. They're people.
Yes, they are. Yes. So I'm gonna, yours is gonna so great. So I'm gonna read a quote. We are given so much love by our caged community members. That's part of why I just feel so grateful to be working with California Prison Focus. And one of the things that an anonymous person, they put it anonymously, I was involved with the far back original hunger strike. I've been on 2 or more since. I have always wondered if my small effort, that's considered a small effort on the inside, to go on a hunger strike. Okay, let's think about that. When's the last time any of you have fasted just for your own peace of mind? I wondered if my small effort ever made a difference. Then I got a look at a copy of your newsletter, and emotion hit. Seeing the photograph of the people holding banners, standing true for a cause, sent my heart sailing and made those hard days hungry at CCI Tehachapi worth it. I appreciate all you've done and do. Keep it up. Make yourself matter.
So, sorry to cut things short. I just want to make sure we stay on time, but I'm sure we could all talk for a long time.
I get paid to talk.
That's great. So I don't know do you all have any more questions? And I don't know. I don't want to impose on your time, but if you have a few minutes, maybe we can just mingle after. If not, I think so. Anyone comfortable with a selfie?
Taking a selfie with me? I'm just gonna hold it up and like take it. I'm selfie.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes.